Audacity in 3, 2, and 1.
Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Barbell Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Christina Lim, and I'm here with the co-host, Marissa Roy. And in today's episode, we're hopefully going to make it a quick one.
We have to.
Yes, we have to make it a quick one. So we've got 15, 20 minutes max. Hopefully, I think we can get in everything that we want to with this topic, though, today.
Yeah. So we want to talk about today the difference between fat loss and health. Because what I've found is that most people just colloquially say, I want to be healthy. I need to be healthier. I need to eat healthier. And then you ask, well, what does that mean? And a lot of times the synonymous thing that people are saying is, well, I need to lose weight, or I want to lose weight, lose body fat, or whatever. And we're kind of using these things interchangeably. And it's not just to nitpick language. Like, that's not why I'm doing it. But I think a lot of times it's like we do that so much that the line between them gets clouded and we don't actually know the difference. Because when I see this happening is when I'm hosting like a masterclass tonight about fat loss. And I was asking a few people who are attending, like, what are you hoping to learn? One person asked, why is regular exercise and 80-20 diet and drinking water not helping me get leaner? And I was like, well, like, fat loss is a specific goal that we need specific protocols for and requires some different things than just eating a healthy 80-20 diet. So you could be under eating calories, you could be overeating calories, you could be exercising the wrong way. Like, there's all these different things, right? So it's like, how do you gear your protocols towards fat loss versus how do you just live a healthy lifestyle? And there's just kind of like levels and layers to it. So I wanted to pull those things apart because it's something that's been on my mind a lot lately.
Yeah. So we have, well, I guess we don't necessarily really have an outline. So I don't know where you want to dive in first and how you want to break it down. So I was maybe thinking we can kind of talk about like just what healthy eating is in general, or like a healthy lifestyle, and then maybe talk about
I think starting with health and then like building off of like, where do you like what changes need to be made for things to gear towards fat loss. And something that I've said a lot that I think should be like a viral tweet, but it never picks up, is what's best for health is not always best for fat loss. And what's best for fat loss is not always best for health. Meaning that, like, if I'm in a fat loss phase, what I typically do is I'll have more like sugar-free, 0-calorie stuff to kind of like curb my appetite and my sweet tooth. And I'm eating less calories overall. So I just try to prioritize like the best food that I can, but sometimes like I just got to like squeeze the cookie in there to kick my sweet tooth or whatever. And it might not be like all the healthiest stuff. Sometimes we go for like the diet ice cream that has all the chemicals or whatever, versus like eating healthy, which like you could go and pick the healthy thing. Like the example is like a slushy or Slurpee from 7-Eleven versus like a smoothie from Jamba Juice. Like both of them could be 300 calories, but one of them is like fruit sugar and one of them is just sugar. And it's like one is healthier than the other, but if they're both 300 calories, you're not going to see any difference in your fat loss by having one versus the other. So I just like make that distinction to say like they are two different things. And so like with health, it really is just like whatever you think when you think like what is being healthy, like you're probably right. And it's really just about the base habits of your day-to-day life that typically, like if you do them regularly, they will also move you towards fat loss if you have a lot of fat to lose, but not always. So there's overlap. It's like a Venn diagram, right? Like there's fat loss and there's health and they overlap, but there's also separate sections that don't overlap. And I think a lot of times people think that it's all just like one big circle.
Yeah, that's a really good visual. I'm a very visual learner, so I kind of like that example. And so one of the big things I think we should point out with fat loss is not sustainable. It is something that you cannot do for a long period of time. So like, having some higher cardio, having lower calories, like doing some things, like you're doing it for a short amount of time. Like when we're dieting, we kind of have the mentality of like, we want to get in and get out. Like we don't want to prolong it because that can cause some deeper health issues down the road. So that's like the big thing that I want to point out, is things that we're doing in the short term are not things that are healthy that we would do in the long term.
Yeah, well, then that's where like that discrepancy gets really sticky, right? Because if you believe that they're the same thing, then you think that being healthy is miserable and unsustainable. And so then we give up on a healthy lifestyle. And it's like, no, it is very enjoyable and balanced. And like, yeah, there's some sacrifice to it, but like it's not all that bad compared to fat loss that can be more extreme for a temporary period of time. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's like where it goes, right? If you have the misconception, that's what deters you from just being healthy in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that, we talk a lot on the podcast about like setting yourself up to be in a good position to start a fat loss phase. So I think that that is first and foremost, that you can't just poof, I'm dieting. So we want to make sure that your calories are in a good spot, like you're not overexerting yourself with cardio. We're focusing on the basics, and the goal is fat loss, not necessarily weight loss. So those are also two very different distinctions. And so just kind of, we're not just like, it's super easy to lose weight. It's very easy. Like we could fast, like we could cut all your water, like we have you do all this exercise, and like, yeah, you're going to see a ton of weight loss, but we're not necessarily going to see a lot of fat loss. We're probably going to see a lot of muscle loss and a lot of things. And the end result is not going to be that toned, strong, muscular look that you're looking for. You're probably going to look just kind of like skinny fat. So really having that distinction between are you wanting to lose weight, or are you wanting to lose fat? Most people, it is fat loss.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, fat loss versus weight loss, fat loss versus health. And so basically like, what is health then, right? So like fat loss is unsustainable. What is fat loss? What is health? So I'll kind of break it down as best I can. So like health technically is a very deep term of like, we call it deep health, with like Precision Nutrition's deep health concept, which is that your health can be divided into 6 different sections, being physical, emotional, environmental, mental, existential, and relational. And so there's all these different things that contribute to your overall basically well-being. Like I would say health and well-being are more synonymous than health and fat loss. And so if you think about it that way, like physical is just one component of it, and think about all the habits that contribute to your health overall. It's not just like your workouts and your nutrition, that's a part of it, but also like, how do you communicate? How do you handle stress? Do you feel like you have purpose in life? How's your mental health doing? Like, are you in a healthy and safe environment? Like all those different things contribute to your health. And those habits oftentimes look like your stress management techniques, your bookend routines to your day, like your morning and nighttime routines, your general daily movement, and like your access to and utilization of nutrient dense foods and hydration. So like that would be health. Like if I had to sum it up in a short spiel, like I would say that is health, like more so just your well-being as a whole, emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, all of the above. And then fat loss is like really kind of taking a microscope in on the physical health side of like, how do I manipulate these variables and my routines and my habits, particularly to see a specific outcome, which is usually the scale going down and or like your measurements, your waist measurement going down and seeing your body fat decrease. And so with that, a specific goal just takes a specific approach. So tracking calories, tracking macros, strength training, all the things that we talk about ad nauseum at the Barbell Lifestyle podcast are essentially like, how do we kind of line those things up and do them consistently enough that we can basically create a predictable result? Like I put A in and I get B out. A lot of times people think it's as simple as like just going on more walks or just eating a little bit healthier and they'll start seeing all these results. And some people do, because maybe they were in such a crappy place before that they see a benefit from that. But for most people that I would say listen to this podcast, the reason that you're stuck is probably because you're trying to make habit changes for health, which is great, but expecting results from something like a fat loss specific phase, which just takes a little bit more knowledge and attention to detail.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that too, again, talking about fat loss being something that is temporary. So it's like, why would someone enter into a fat loss phase versus being in a health phase? So it's like, okay, well, maybe I feel like I have, some body recomp goals. Maybe I have something coming up that I just want to be a little bit more, fit for, or just for health purposes. I feel like I'm maybe a little bit overweight and I want to lose some fat. So we dive into a fat loss phase. And like you were saying, it's kind of like we turn the dial up, right? Like we take our healthy habits, like our foundation, and just crank it up a little bit. And so we enter into this fat loss phase. We do it for a short amount of time. And then we enter into like a reverse diet. Like we slowly reverse out of the diet. We get back to a place where we can maintain. And then again, that's kind of where the healthy habits stay again. And we're back into like this health phase that we're hopefully in for a longer period of time. So that this doesn't mean that like you don't ever have to lose fat again, because it does take still some healthy choices. And like we've talked about this in a couple different episodes where you still have to like turn down some things, and we can't just like live in like, oh, okay, like I don't have to diet or make a good choice ever again. Like it's still hard. We still got to drink our water. We still got to move. Like we still have the core, like our healthy foundations. We still have to mitigate stress, like all these things. But it's just not as an extreme as we are with the fat loss. Like, again, those are just kind of temporary things, but I feel like health is just kind of like, where do you want your maintenance to be? Like that level of what I can maintain, what is easy for me. So this is like, I have a lot of conversations with current clients when they talk about like, steps, like when they track their daily steps and they're like, oh, what can I be doing right now? And I'm like, well, we're not really in a fat loss phase. So I don't want your activity, I don't want your steps to get too high to a place where you're not able to maintain, because when we start entering a dieting phase, if you're already at like 10 or 12,000 steps, there's not really a whole lot that we can manipulate. And if you're already struggling to get these numbers, like I don't necessarily think it should be that high. So health is just kind of like, what can you maintain? That it's not that it's, again, super easy, but it's also not something that's super hard, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like, what are the non-negotiables that you can kind of keep in your life sustainably and not have to like break your back to work on. And that's not to say that fat loss is like so unsustainable that it's like the HCG diet or like 500 calories a day or whatever. Like it's not miserable. Like as coaches, our job is
if you do it right.
Yeah, as our job is to make fat loss as tolerable and fit your life as much as possible. But it's like there is that distinction of like it's temporary and it will suck more than normal. But with that, I guess the question then, like to kind of like tie it all together, is like, okay, well, great, I understand the distinction now. What do I do? And so I think the question that you have to ask yourself is like, really, where is your life currently? Like, I feel like most people would benefit from focusing on all aspects of deep health and their day-to-day routines for a while before like diving into a fat loss phase, because it does make that next step a lot easier. So that's like the way that we've structured our program, is basically our whole kind of priming phase is literally just diving into all aspects of deep health, mental, emotional, physical, your habits that I mentioned, so that like you have a good morning routine and you eat regular meals across the day and you take care of stress appropriately so you're not binge eating at night, and you work on your relationship with yourself so that you're not perpetuating toxic habits and patterns, and you're not making decisions from a negative place, and you're making decisions from an abundant place of self-care. And so once you do that, then making the decision to enter a fat loss phase is a decision that's made not out of self-hatred, but out of self-love and acceptance. And also all the habits that you have to add in for fat loss make a little bit more sense, come a little bit more naturally, and staying consistent with them doesn't take as much, like doesn't put as much stress on your plate, because you know how to manage stress better. So I would say it's usually a really good complement to like learning the next steps once you've kind of tackled your deep health. But that deep health kind of realm is where you should really just live most of the time once you've reached your physique goals, unless you're striving to be like, an athlete in a particular sport or competitive field. So that's my take on what you should do.
Yeah. And I really like the idea of like, when we look at fat loss versus like a health phase, like I think that we should focus more on the health phase, because that's where we should be spending the most time. And it's almost kind of give you more bang for your buck, because when you do enter that fat loss phase, it's just going to make it easier if you have those non-negotiables kind of down. Like, you drink at least half your body weight in ounces of water a day. Like you're getting a base, 4 to 5,000 steps, or 4 to 5,000 steps a day with movement. You are eating a decent amount of protein, like you're hitting, food quality is there. Like all of these things are just going to make it so much easier. You're managing stress, you're sleeping, like you have all those things down. So then when the fat loss phase comes, again, you just turn the dial up a little bit. Like you get in, get out, you see your results, and then you go back into your health phase. So I think, again, spending more time there, because it is going to just be more worthwhile for you than spending all of your time trying to spin your wheels at like all or nothing. Like I'm either doing nothing at all, or I'm like at a 10, I'm neurotic trying to lose all this fat because I don't have my healthy habits down. So we have a lot of episodes that go into that a lot deeper, but we told you guys that we'd keep it short and sweet for you today. So hopefully we've done a good job summarizing fat loss versus health phases.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last thing on that is just like, when you're going all or nothing and your balls to the wall and you're so neurotic, you're under the delusion that this is what health is. This is what being healthy is. This is diet, like dieting is being healthy. And it's like, nope, let's back up and make sure we understand this. So hopefully this shed some light on it and provided you a lot of value and direction in where you want to go with your health or your fat loss journey.
Yeah. And I'll say one more thing, because I feel like our clients are both so similar. And like, we have so many people that will go through the program and they're like, I can't believe I am eating so much and seeing progress. I can't believe that I'm losing weight and I don't feel like I'm dieting. Like that is like the number one thing that we hear from our clients. And it is really crazy what can happen when you do focus on your health. Like fat loss and weight loss sometimes happens as a result because you have that foundation there. And it's just, it's so awesome what you can do when you work smarter and not harder. But yeah, we hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. You can find both of us on Instagram. You can find me at Christy Lynn Fit. Marissa is at Marissa Roy Fitness. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope to see you back next week.